So just saying you've just started doing your research and you're looking around at which printer to buy and where they're available. Just coming back to the fact that we are in Australia, it's always good to buy the bigger brands. There will always be a cheaper no-name brand. I'm not saying they're terrible, but the day you need a part for a brand that has one product and they don't make printers anymore, you're going to find you've thrown your money at the wall. So just looking at what you could walk into JCar and buy, and it's a fairly well-known brand. It's the Anycubic Mono UV Proto. It's a 4K printer. It's got fairly good stats. It's the baseline printer. JCar sells them on special for about $300 and they're available. So that's the lower end printer I'd look at. The one I bought, which I'd say is a mid-end printer, is the Eligo Saturn 2. It's an MSLA 3D printer. It's got UV resin photo curing. It's an 8K. It's a 10-inch screen. For what I needed and the work I was doing with my printer, I do small engineering parts. It suits my range, and you can get them. This is Australian dollars. This is in March 2023, $840. That's from Fashion 3D. They're an Australian company. The stock is in Australia. And yeah, you will always find a better deal somewhere, but I'll just say try to get something that's in stock. And the way this recession looks like it's about to hit in a few months, buy now before it gets too late. But Australian stock, Australian stockists, and the bigger brands, you'll be able to get the spare parts. And the other spare part, which you probably want to buy, is the FEP screen. And it's very easy to look up what this is, but to give you a quick explanation, imagine the printer vat is actually an upside down drum that holds your resin. And so the FEP is the actual drum material itself. That's what the 3D screen shoots through. So you will need spares. You will wreck them, and they sort of are disposable items, but you can get a pack for about $60. So just add that to your price. You will want to get some spares. Now, moving on from that, the next thing you'll need is a curing and washing station. Now, you can build this yourself. There are people on the net who've got a UV light or a UV screen or an LED light. They've got aluminium foil. They've put it inside a big bucket and they shake their stuff around. They also do the same with their alcohol or their methylated spirits. They just get a strainer and they wash it into a bucket yourself. And you could probably get away with building a setup like that for about $120. I went away from that simply because I didn't have the time to build that myself. And I liked what the Eligo Mercury XS bundle comes with. It comes with a curing station. It comes with a turntable on the curing station, plus a small UV light you can use to cure small spots. And it's also good because you can actually use the resin to glue other resin together with this small light. Then I bought, that comes in that bundle as well, is the washing station, which has got a little tiny agitator in the bottom of it. It's got a strainer in it. I did have to modify it slightly. I put a metal fly screen into it just so I didn't lose the small parts out the side of the tray. But I find for what the bundle is, it's actually quite a good deal. And they've already done the hard work, so you don't have to build anything, because I don't know what everyone else's hourly rate is, but time is always money. So if you're going to spend 6 hours or a day building your own photo curing station, or you can go to work for a day and get a really high-end one, I think you'll probably find most people earn more than $300 a day. So you can go in and get the photo curing station that way. The next thing you'll need is methylated spirits. Isopropyl alcohol is the recommended product for cleaning resin. Getting that in Australia, it really is cost prohibitive. Methylated spirits will do the exact same thing. It seems you watch videos on comparisons, everyone goes for this sort of thing. Now, if you go into Bunnings, you can get it for $5.33 a litre. And I don't know why, but if you buy it in the bigger jugs, the 3 litre jugs, it goes up to about 18 litres. So $18 for 3 litres. So it's better to actually buy the small jugs. They're easy to handle as well. And it's good because if you dirty some resin, say if you've used it 5 or 6 times, you can put it back in the same little jug and keep it aside for when you're doing a big pre-clean on a bigger part one day. So put away about $22 for methylated spirits. You'll probably want 4 litres. Next thing you'll actually need is a table to work on. This resin, you will spill resin, you will make a mess, you'll be pushing alcohol on things, wiping things with alcohol wipes. Whatever table you use, whatever bench you use, expect it to be wrecked, expect it to be a workbench. So let's just say you're going to go and buy a cheap table, that Lifetime brand that you get from Bunnings or Anaconda or BCF, those plastic fold-out ones, that'll work fine for this sort of application. So you're looking between $45 for the 4-foot tables and $70 for the 6-foot tables. So just keep that in mind. You'll need some prep area. Next thing you'll need is actually trays to capture things, trays to hold resin, to pour resin onto things, to clean things with, to put your even prints on once they're curing. So if you need a couple of trays, just go to dollars and cents and they'll run between $4 and $10 a tray. Bunnings will have different trays as well. The other thing you'll need, which is a really handy thing, and a lot of videos don't talk about it, is IPA wipes or isopropyl alcohol wipes. They come pre-impregnated with IPA. The good thing about these is when you've got a print in your hands or you're wearing gloves and you're trying to touch something, you're trying to move something, as soon as you touch something after you've touched resin, the resin is exothermic. So you go out in the sun with that on your hand, it's going to start burning you. So you need to be able to clean things down quite easily and quite quickly. That's where an IPA wipe comes in really handy. Bianco, they sell a really well-priced pack. I'll put it up on the screen for you. They're about $10 a pack for a bundle of 40 or something. They work fine, and you wipe something down, you get the resin on it, you throw it straight out. So you're not trying to wet a rag with methylated spirits and then go and wipe it on things. You can just go, okay, I'm finished with what I'm doing in that area. I'm going to wipe down that switch, that light switch, whatever, that tool I was just using, and chuck it straight out. So IPA wipes are definitely for the win. The next thing you'll also need is you will need rags, you'll need paper. I keep all the scrap paper I can from work, but one of the best rags you can get, and if you're a tradie, it's called Wipe All. It's a blue roll-off product. It's a very terrible product. Doesn't leave a lot of lint on things. That's the one I'd recommend. But you can go to the dollar store and buy a cheap cloth, tear-off cloth for about $3, and it's perfectly good as well. So you will need that as well. Now we're moving into the protective sphere. Now, when you buy your printer, you're going to get, every printer comes with a couple of face masks and a couple of cheap latex gloves. You're going to need more. You go and buy latex gloves, it'll be between $6 to $14 depending on the quality and the size of the box. You definitely want gloves when you're handling this stuff. You're going to want gloves when you're handling the methylated spirits. You'll get dermatitis if it dries out your skin too much with alcohol. So you're definitely going to want to buy some latex gloves, use them once, throw them out. It's for your own safety. The next thing, I've seen people talk about not using these, and I'm a bit of a safety Sally, and I'll just say, if we find out that this resin is carcinogenic or the resin you're using is carcinogenic in the next 10 years, you're going to be very sad you didn't take the extra 2 minutes to put a mask on. Now, in your pack, you'll get a cheap paper mask, the same mask we all wore during COVID. I just don't think they're up to stuff. What I'd recommend is actually going to buy a real protective mask from M3 or 3M, sorry, that you can change the cartridges out, change the things out. Now, the one I bought is actually called a half-face respirator. Now, there's many different brands, but the one I'll point out is it's called the Pro Choice Maxi. It's actually a kit. It's called the Chemical Handy Pack. I'll put it up on the screen here. They're fairly common. It's a well-known safety brand. And the advantage of this pack is it's $100. You can get a cheaper pack for about $50. But this pack is self-sealing, so everything you need comes in this pack. If you leave this respirator on the bench and you work with chemicals in the area, the inside of the mask will get contaminated with your resin, so you'll end up breathing in small fumes that way or residue that way. So this way, you use your mask, you put it back in a sealable container, you'll get a lot longer life out of your respirators. It'll stop it getting contaminated when you're not using it. So I'd recommend going down this way. So there's an extra $100 to your cost. So looking at what we have here, now I'm not saying, and I'm not a rich person, I built my setup with what I had and what I could afford, but the lower end cost of getting into this as a new hobby or a new interest, you're looking at about $650, and that'll be you printing. You'll have one tub of resin for about $650. You'll print something out. That's the lower end. The middle end, which I'd say I've landed at using the printer I've used, you're at about $1,500. You'll be printing with, it'll cost you about $1,500 to be printing the first object. Now, that does sound like a lot, and to a lot of people that is a lot. I always say to myself, I never buy anything that's a luxury item that's worth more than 1 week's of my wage, so I've got to keep costs low these days. So bear in mind, that's where you're going to land cost-wise. Now, if you've just heard those numbers and you go, wow, I wanted to get into this hobby, this is also assuming as well that you have a laptop, you have some way to download the models you want to print, you know about, I might go through what programs to use, but if you're hearing these numbers, you're going, this is way too expensive. What I can recommend is getting onto Facebook Marketplace, getting onto Gumtree, finding someone local or putting up an ad yourself saying 3D printer wanted, or someone will be 3D printing. This is how I got into resin 3D printing. I found someone locally who was doing it, and he was a really lovely guy. I've gotten to know him. We're probably acquaintances, not friends now, but he helped me out, pointed me in the right direction, showed me what not to do, what to do. And honestly, if you say, look, I actually only want to print 10 or 20 things, that might only cost you $100 or $200. Now, he's buying the resin anyway, included in that price, or you might be able to get a discount if you give him the resin you want to use. But you've got to ask yourself, how much stuff do I really want to print? There's a lot of people there's people I've known, not a lot of people, they've bought a couple 3D printers and they don't use them. They print out the 5, the 10 things they want, and then it just sits there not getting used a lot. Now, if you can find someone locally who's willing to do what you want to do, that also means they're doing the curing for you, they're doing the processing for you. It can save you some time. So just consider that as an option, or even buying in with a friend of yours. That way someone doesn't have to bear the cost. Now, the other quick thing I just want to touch on is space. For me, space is a premium. I live in a very small house. I built my setup in a shipping container I have in my backyard. You will need space for this. You can't do this in your kitchen room. You'd want at least a spare room with good ventilation. You will want airflow. You want to get the fumes out. You don't want the fumes traveling into your house. If you've got kids, you want to be in a garage at least. So consider you will need a space.